It's a surreal and special feeling when a diver heads deep into Lake Huron to explore a new shipwreck. And he is surrounded by history of the wreck that wants to tell her story. And with our discovery of the Hydrus that sunk during the Great Storm of 1913, it's a tragic tale she tells. The Great Storm of 1913 was absolutely the most horrific storm that ever hit the Great Lakes. There were giant waves, 35 foot high, 70, 80 mile an hour winds, and the losses of almost 270 seamen, and caused the demise of 12 ships. One of those was the Hydrus.
Well, the Hydrus had already taken a tremendous punishment coming across Lake Superior. It probably would have been enough to sink less of a ship. And they thought if they had gone through what Lake Superior had to offer, they probably would be okay going through Lake Huron. And you have to remember, they had no instruments. The only thing they had was a barometer. So to the best of their knowledge, the storm had abated. They decided to make a run for it down Lake Huron. And that's when they ran into the worst of it. When the waves began to come over the stern, it probably got their concern because they realized their lives hinged on those engines running. And if anything happened to stop that engine running, they were doomed.
And eventually she loses power and she gets caught in the trough and she can't get out.
They didn't know that these conditions were going to last for hours.
And during that period of time, we find that somehow portions of the crew actually managed to escape in the lifeboat.
Lifeboats in this day were an absolute last resort. They were probably the most ill-suited vehicles ever used to save life. Can you imagine doing it with 70-mile-an-hour winds, a coating of ice on everything, and 40-foot waves? Well, you know, when they finally did find one of the lifeboats from the Hydrus, it was washed ashore on the Canadian side. It had 5 occupants in it.
2 of those people were Colonel and Leslie Christie of Marine City.
That must have been devastating to the family to have 2 brothers roughly the same age die in the same shipwreck under the same circumstances. The fact that they were found frozen to death sitting upright in the boat is it's just an incredible story.
The day that we discovered the Hydrus started out like hundreds of others. And we take the side scan sonar, we place it over the side and send it out behind the boat 500-600 feet so that it's able to send out sound patterns to come back and image on the LCD screen.
No shit. Oh, God, right up here. God, yeah, 5 years! And it even popped over on the other side. Look at that. Look at the size of that. Now slide over.
Yeah, there we go. Is that a shipwreck?
Oh, that's a big freighter.
Fucking mackerel, that's a big freighter.
Look at all those
100,
hatches.
200, 300, that fucker's almost 400 feet. That could be the Hydrus.
And it was amazing. There was so much detail because it was a very good pass. We could see cargo hatches and cargo holds and we could count them. And there's no question when we looked at the length, we knew he had finally found the Hydrus after a 30-year effort.
Hey fellas, this is unbelievable. Intact and upright.
It is.
Wow.
It is.
You guys think that's a Hydrus? That is the Hydrus.
Got it.
A week after an amazing discovery, we headed back out onto Lake Huron to dive into history for the first time on the Hydrus. Along the way, divers spend a 2-hour trip doing everything from reading to planning their dives with the blueprints of the Hydrus. Once over the site,
Okay.
divers go through their routines and check their gear for the journey back into time.
Got it. 1, 2, 3.
There we are recording.
Many divers use scooters to explore the wreck. They only spend 20 minutes on the bottom before having to slowly decompress on their way back to the surface. They see history in front of them. All 436 feet of the Hydrus. And yet, it's also an underwater grave for sailors.
I can never get over the fact that they do what professional divers wouldn't do unless they got really well paid for it. They do it for the love of it. They're seeing history being developed right in front of their eyes. And to me, that must be the appeal that keeps them going back time after time. I can understand the draw of finding something that no one has ever seen before, but why they're so willing to go back and do it week after week after week, it's just remarkable. And the fact that they garner and gather so much really good information is going to just be something that historians in the future are just going to value so much, and yet they do it just for the love of doing it.
These shipwrecks tell a story. They open up the history of the Great Lakes. They open up the history of Michigan.
You know, if you have to really say what makes you do this, I don't think you can. It's just an interest that's in you, and you can't change.
We have to have the official pose. We gotta have the official pose. Can we get one shot with the official pose? We planned it for 30, but we were having a good time down there, so we left them. Oh, we need a beer for this.